Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm going to be sharing in this video how I made my American flag blanket. So I've already made this blanket, so I'll be walking through kind of little tips and tricks, things that I did along the way, and also just how I went about doing my blanket. So stick around and hopefully you'll be able to make your own American flag blanket. I will have affiliated links in the description down below, so be sure to check that out. Affiliated links mean that if you purchase any of the items from that list, I will make a small commission. It's just a way to support me and help me grow on this channel and help me provide supplies, because supplies are not cheap. So I don't just have these things out of nowhere. I do have to buy these things myself. I'm not having anybody that I'm sponsored through or anybody that's giving me yarn. I have to purchase all this stuff myself. So if you're wanting to help me and support me, this is a great way to do so. But if you don't really have the money to support me that way, continue to watch this video to its fullest, and also watch other videos on my channel to their fullest, liking, commenting, sharing. That helps me tremendously by getting my videos out there. So that's a great way that is free to help me and support me. So with this American flag blanket, it is a free pattern by Nancy Black Paget. So I'll have that pattern linked down below. Since it is a pattern designed by somebody else, I cannot make a tutorial for this, so please do not ask. I wish I could just make tutorials for things that I have made and are sharing with you guys, but that is not how crocheting works. I have to have permission, or somebody would have to tell me that I can make these things, but for the most part, that gets involved, so I'm not going to be doing that unless Nancy or whoever, any pattern that I do, unless they specifically are like, yeah, make a tutorial. I will not be making tutorials for things that are other people's, just because that's out of respect. I'm going to be making money for these videos, so I don't think it's fair to take that profit from somebody else. So I will not be making a tutorial, but I'm offering these links for you guys so you can find the pattern yourself. If you happen to come across anything that is challenging that I don't have a tutorial for, I am more than willing to help with little concepts or things like that. With this one, it's so basic when it comes to stitches. I mean, it's double crochet, so if that's really difficult, no problem. I have a tutorial on how to do double crochet. And then for the stars, the pattern credit was a completely different person, but the pattern credit goes to Bee Hooked Crochet, which is a YouTube video. So I'll have that link down below as well. And the pattern, she does link that as well. So if you're already on the pattern, you'll be able to find it just by scrolling down a little further on the pattern. And then some of the materials, which if you've looked at the pattern, you already know this, but I'm just saying it so that if you're interested, but you're not sure if you want to make this. So for this pattern, it does use quite a bit of yarn because you are making a blanket. So always keep in mind that if you're making a blanket, you're gonna need quite a bit of yarn. Just something to think about. And by quite a bit, I'm talking, you know, a couple skeins of acrylic yarn. So in her pattern, she says that you'll need 3 8-ounce skeins of Red Heart Super Saver in the color Cherry Red. And then you'll need 2 8-ounce skeins of Red Heart Super Saver Soft Navy. And then 3 8-ounce skeins in white. I cannot remember how much I used for my blanket because this was 6 years ago that I made this, and it was also in the process of while we were moving, and I was a very new crocheter at the time, so I did not understand the concept that you were supposed to buy quite a bit of yarn. I think I only bought like a couple of skeins of each color, so like, and I don't even know if I had the right sizes because my Walmart had jumbo and all that stuff, but that's what she's saying you'll need. So if you're worried about needing more or less, I always make sure to have at least one more skein if it's a color I'm worried about. Red, you are using a good portion of the blanket, and then the next one is white. So those you definitely want to make sure you have quite a bit of. But overall, the blue is not as much. So I would say that's safe to say with just the 2 8-ounce skeins. So this was something I made back in 2020, as I said earlier. I had only been crocheting for a few months when I got interested in doing this. So I had already made one blanket, and I made a lot of crochet foods because that's what I started out with. And I had seen multiple American flag just blankets, and I really wanted to make one because I thought that would be so cool to have one, just so you could drape it on your couch or have it out for the summertime, just for patriotic stuff. And I looked at a whole bunch of them because there is a lot, and I can show some of the ones I had looked at and some of the different options, there were some that had just the 13 stars in the circle and then just the 13 stripes. And then there was some that had more of a wavy kind of rippled look, which looked pretty cool. I really wanted to stick just more traditional just because at the time that was my interest. I probably would do a ripple one now just because it does seem a little more unique and different. But at the time, I was going more traditional. I think the biggest struggle I had with this blanket was because I was so new, I didn't grasp the concept of counting stitches. Lot of stitches, not just, okay, you count to 10 or, when you're doing smaller things like what I was used to, and also working in a straight line. I was used to working in the round. So I had not grasped the concept that it is super crucial when you're making a blanket to make sure your stitch count is correct and constantly make sure your stitch count is correct, because I was having an issue where I was very confident that my stitch count was right because I had chained and done my first couple of rows. I'm like, all right, I'm good. I'm not increasing. I'm not decreasing. I don't have to worry about it. But I was actually increasing and my project started going way off, as you'll be able to see in this clip here, that it just was not straight. And I just hadn't figured out, because like my problem was I wasn't counting, and it's difficult when you, as a new crocheter, do not want to count like 200 stitches every single row. And so I wasn't doing that. But then also learning the concept of at the end of your row, which is a turning chain and which is actually a stitch. And I think I was going into what was the turning chain. So if I was counting my stitches, I wouldn't have been working in that, and then I wouldn't have had that problem. But since then, now that I've been crocheting for 6 years, I have come to develop a technique. Personally, I don't know if somebody else has ever done this specifically, but it's something I definitely have used a lot when it comes to just the overwhelmingness of counting stitches, or just trying to keep my stitch count if it seems complicated, because my brain does get overwhelmed with a lot of numbers. It's just the way I am. I can show you a little concept that I've been doing and a technique that's helped me with keeping my stitch count, especially when you're counting so many stitches, because that can get very, 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 very boring after, 50 or 60 rows or however many it is. I can't remember how much with this blanket, but you'll be doing quite a bit. So one little trick I like to do when I have so many stitches in a project, like we're talking way more than this. So something that could be like 40, 50, up to 100, maybe even 200 stitches. And I'm getting overwhelmed with having to count that after every single row. I'm going to show you a trick of what I like to do. So in this case, I have like not that many stitches, but let's pretend that this was like a really, really long, like maybe 100 stitches here. And so I'm about to work my next row. So you just kind of work your next row as if you were doing like normal, and we'll pretend I have this long snake keep going out of frame. So what I would do is, depending on what the pattern is, just kind of follow my pattern along. And then I like to pick a number that would be easy for me to kind of cluster my stitches. So if it was like 100 stitches, I don't want to count to 100. So I would probably make a mark. So I have my little, these are my stitch markers. So I would make a mark on the 50th stitch so that I can at least count up to 50. Or if you wanted to, do 10, so you could do 10 and then you'll mark your stitches. So we'll pretend that I've got my stitches here. So in this example, I'm going to be using 10. So if you choose to do 50, you would go up to your 50. So I'm doing 10. Take your stitch marker. And after that stitch, so I would know this is 50, or 10 in this case. And then carry on doing my stitches. So whatever stitch number would be easy for you to cluster your stitches, depending on, however many it is. So if it's like 50, maybe do yours in 10s. Or you know what I mean? Like find a way that makes it easy for your brain to be able to just know when you're looking. That way you can at least visually see. And then if you have a brain like mine, you're watching a show, you were counting, you got distracted, you stopped counting. It makes it so much easier to be like, oh, okay, go back and count a little bit instead of going all the way back to the beginning. So I found just kind of breaking up your count just makes it a lot easier when you're multitasking. or you forget things easily like me. That's just something that helps my brain because I get very overwhelmed with just having to do that. And the more stitches you have, it can be intimidating, at least for me, to constantly have to be counting that all the time. And when you're already trying to focus on your pattern, and depending on what it is, it can be pretty repetitive and not so exciting. So this is a way that I like to do to kind of help. So hopefully this will be something that you guys can be able to follow along and do for your projects and be able to help you with keeping your stitch count, especially when you have so many of them. But for the overall part of the blanket, you are doing a bunch of chaining to start it out, and then you're pretty much double crocheting for the actual flag portion itself. But you'll start with whichever color it is when it's red, and you'll do however many rows of that it says in the pattern. And then when you get to the end of that final row, I'm sure it tells you specifically to color change to the white. And then you'll probably want to snip your ends and for the red, and then continue with the white, and then you kind of do that every so many rows. Now when it comes to doing the blue portion, because I remember when I first saw the pattern and I was like, oh boy, how on earth am I going to add the blue portion? Because I thought maybe you just do the color change between just the red and the white stripes and then you attach that later. But that's the thing that's deceiving. You are still color changing. You're just color changing in the middle of a row. So instead of doing the finish completely one row and then attach, you know, red or white, you will be in wherever it tells you to. It'll probably tell you after a certain stitch to color change to blue. And then you'll do the rest of the row in blue, and then coming back, you'll do it in blue, and then where you stopped last time, right above it, it'll be whatever color, so if it's red or white. Once you get the hang of it, it starts to make sense. But on the back, so this is the back of my blanket where I attached all my stars. I just kind of, because I wasn't worried about the back too much because it's going to be laid out on something, or, you know, typically you don't see the back of a blanket. I'm sorry, my dog hair's on everything. So I just sewed kind of all the way around and then did a little tiny knot and then clipped it. But that's kind of what I did for each one. And if I think I cut like a really long strand, so sometimes I was just kind of weaving, and like some of these, it kind of just depended. I think as I went along, just so I wasn't having to cut and tie, cut and tie, cut and tie, because I think that's what I did at the beginning, especially up here. But I think I started just kind of stringing. It looks like this continues, so I think I just started stringing things along, just cutting a long piece of thread and just tying it through that way and assembling it that way. And then I think when I attached, sorry, this thing's so huge. I'm sure you saw in the clip with it comparing next to my dog. I mean, my dog was tiny, and my dog is a bull mastiff. So if that's making it look, you know, ginormous. So when I was doing my stars, I think what I did is I laid each one of them kind of out to figure out a best placement. And as you can kind of see, they're not like straight, and that's kind of how it is with the American flag. Everything's not all straight. It's kind of in such a way so that it kind of fits. So you'll just kind of have to have an idea of what you would want yours to look like and kind of how you're going to put them all on. You'll just want to kind of brainstorm it, have an idea about how many. And I don't even know if I even looked at an American flag. You could do that too to kind of see how the star placement is. I think I just winged it, to be honest, just laying everything down and trying to figure out how it will all fit, because there is actually 50 stars on here. So I did make them all fit. I think this was the most time consuming part, honestly, was trying to tie every single, or attach all of these stars on here. It turned out pretty good. So yeah, there really wasn't a whole lot more to explaining this blanket other than, you know, just the basic stitch and, you know, how the color changing works. I do have a tutorial on color changing. So if you're really unfamiliar with color changing, you can go check that out down below. I'll have it linked. And that I specifically am showing more like a picture, but the color concept of changing colors and switching out is pretty much the exact same. So I'm focusing on showing a graph. You can ignore that whole portion. You can just follow the part where I actually do the color changing, and that's literally just how you add and switch over to a color. I can also do a specific video if you guys need something that's a little more focused on color changing and not so much of like a picture, just like how you would switch colors, I could do one. Just comment it down below and I'll make a quick tutorial on that. And if there's a small tutorial or basic tutorial on something that you guys are wanting, let me know, because I can do those. If you're into crafting as well, be sure to check out some of my videos. I have 3 patriotic DIYs, so very good for this time of year with it being summer. I got a patriotic star popsicle stick craft. I believe I have one that's a firecracker craft out of cans. And then I also have a USA sign just made out of yarn and letters. So check those out if you're interested in doing some patriotic crafts this year. Thank you all for watching. I hope this video was inspiring for you guys to want to make your own American flag blanket. I'm curious to know maybe what kind of project you're wanting to make. Are you planning to make an American flag blanket like I did on this video, or did the other ones that I shared and showed pictures of, the rippled, or maybe the one with the 13 stars and the circle, like the more traditional, the older American flag, any of those interest you more? What are you guys going to be doing? Are you more into crafting? Are you going to be working on some patriotic crafts? You know, things for decor around your home. I'd love to hear about it. I'm very interested to know what everybody's working on this summer. And as always, happy crafting and keep creating beautiful things. Until next time, everyone. Bye.